What is going on, guys? It's me, Troy, and I'm here again with another video, of course. So thanks everybody who recently commented, liked, and subscribed. I don't know why I give all that aggression, but thanks everybody who recently commented, liked, and subscribed. And yeah, let's see how I'm gonna open this up. So I'm here to talk about The Eye of the World, which is the first book in Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time series. As some of you guys know, I read this earlier this month, which of course is in January, and I so enjoyed it. I had a lot of good, feel-good areas, many more feel-good areas percentage-wise, and not so feel-good areas on the lower end of the spectrum as it concerns percentage-wise. The point is that it was good enough. I loved it. It was an enjoyable read. It really did hit the spot as it concerns my high fantasy, epic fantasy entree. And to be completely fair, I'm actually 181 pages away from the end of the second book in the series, the sequel, The Great Hunt. And this one right here, baby. This one right here is the business. I will say that The Eye of the World was definitely par for the course with the epic fantasy series. You know, you have to have that debut with all the setup fair. But that second book, child, is all right. But we ain't gonna talk about that one right now. So I ended up making some freaking notes because I was gonna try to undress this as best as I could. And let me just go ahead and get this little disclaimer out of the way. I don't need any toxicity in terms of my undressing this. I'm gonna keep it short and clear and as concise as I can be because I really want to talk about this book and express my experience with it. So picture this: you have the true source. I would attribute this to this like enigmatic figure. Or enigmatic entity, probably closely attributed to how in our reality we would look at it as God, maybe. I don't want to do all the theology and psychologically and physiology, all that stuff, a lot of these things, but it's called the true source. And underneath the true source is what I look at as like a bubble of energy known as the one power. And the one power is essentially the magic source. In this world, the one power allows both male as well as females to be able to channel magic. They're known as Aes Sedai, people who can channel magic. But the interesting thing about the one power is that it consists of two different components to make everything, you know, balance and work. There's the male half, which is known as Sadin, and then there's the female half of the one source, or the one power, that is known as Sadar. So everything in this world is going pretty good. You know, man can channel magic, women can channel magic. And then, for all intents and purposes, we're going to keep this labeled as a dark entity, a dark force. This dark force ended up coming about during the Age of War. I think they call it like the time of madness, where he was able to taint the male half, the Sadine half of the one power, to the point that, much like a curse, any male who is able to channel the one power of any sort eventually goes mad to the point where they kill their family, kill their relatives, and some even to the point where they destroy the entire world. During the previous age, I think it was the previous age, there's this character's name Luz who actually was able to channel the one power. He channeled the one power to such a degree that, you know, with a war going on during that time, he just pretty much destroyed the world. They call it the breaking. So with him breaking the world and his demise, he is known as the dragon. You know, he's the dragon sleeping in Dragon Mount or something like that. That's, you know, if you read the book, you'll know what that entails. But the point is that with that age ending, his legend is carried over. And so with the survival of the human race, you know, they contribute the destruction of the world to this dragon, to lose legend. The legend of the dragon is really interesting. It's like a double-edged sword. He is to come about to stop darkness from taking over the world, but he's also to come about to end the world. He puts me a lot in mind of Sailor Saturn. Yeah. So with that being said, of course, the world does not want the dragon to be reborn again. So the female half of the one power, known as I said, as the Sadar, they, if you would say, I would say they monitor any activity revolving around any males who attempt or has the capabilities of being able to channel magic, and they do this thing to these males called the gentling. The gentling is basically, I look at it like a magical lobotomy, maybe. I haven't gotten too much details, but that's to keep males from channeling the one power, because if they do, they go mad, they destroy the world, their families, etc., etc. So they have to keep that tapered down. But unfortunately, in this age, the dark forces are really gathering force. They're really gathering an army. It's getting stronger, and there are many signs of the dragon being reborn. And that is where we're introduced to Moraine. Moraine is Aes Sedai, who, of course, has the power to channel the one power, and she is in connection with a man named Lan, who is her warder. Warders are probably like, well, if you think of Moraine as being able to wield magic, he is like her arm, he is like her weapon as well as her guardian. But with these visions and prophecies coming about of the rise of the Dark One, there is strong suspicions that, of course, with the Dark One rising, of course, the dragon is about to be reborn. There have been plenty of false dragons that have been gentle throughout the years and the ages, but nevertheless, the true dragon is on his way or has been birthed. So Moraine as well as Lan have to go about finding the true dragon to, I guess you would say, intercept the comings and goings that's about to take place. And that leads them to this small village called Edmund's Field, where they're introduced to 5 really interesting younglings. 3 boys or 3 young men and 2 young women. Rand is a shepherd. Matt is, I don't know what Matt is, but I would look at him, I think he's looked at as like the trickster kind of character. Perrin is a son of a blacksmith. Nynaeve is what in this village they call a wisdom. Wisdom is probably equals like a medic of sorts. And the 5th girl is, or the 5th character is Egwene, who is like the childhood girl who sort of is like a tomboy, used to hang out with the boys. But the primary focus is on Rand, because they're male, Matt, and Perrin. And it becomes much more clear that one of the 3 of these men are going to be the Dragon Reborn. The Dark Forces start to send his agents out to either sway them onto his side or to destroy them. And that is where the Eye of the World kind of launches off, as Moraine and Lan gather this group of young men and young women to head to this place called Tar Valon. Tar Valon is where all the women Aes Sedai go and, you know, effectively keep these characters guarded and protected from the Dark Force as it continues to rise and influence them to either wield magic or to, like I said, destroy them. So I tried to address that as best as I could. Child, I mean, that's the best that I could do, okay? I just tried, but you just find somebody else who knows how to do it better, okay? You know, deuces. I mean, you know, take it or leave it. I did the best that I could. You know, I enjoyed this book. Let's go ahead and get that out of the way. I enjoyed this book. It did, like I said, it was a great entree for some high fantasy, epic fantasies to start the year off with. And I'm not really that versed or thorough when it comes to high fantasy, so, you know, it doesn't matter, because with me, I read because of stories. You know, I just tell me a good story and I can take it from there. So without a doubt, it told me a fantastic story. Fantastic epic high fantasy story. As I said before, it was really accessible, although I have a hard time, as I just said, probably breaking it down. I still understood a lot of the gist of what was happening. It was predictable in areas as well. I kind of saw what Robert Jordan was doing with some of these characters, but regardless of that, it was still an absolute joy to watch the events take place and unfold. And I would say that if I look at pros and cons, I really don't even see that there. I think it all kind of worked in itself. But if we'll look at the things that I wasn't so moved by first, or I would look at them as like the areas of Tatum. The number one thing that I think that a lot of people probably have an issue with this book is the pacing, because once it launches off where Moraine and Lan gather the young men and women, and even one that I hadn't mentioned, and they set forth on their journey to Tar Valon, you know, to seek protection within the walls of Tar Valon with the Aes Sedai. There was, you know, it launched out very great, but there were moments that I thought were brilliant in which Jordan split the characters up. You know, they had to take this chunk of characters and send them that way, this chunk that way, this chunk that way, through some very dire and distressful events. So, you know, that was fantastic. But if I look at it, one of those paths, particularly where he separated the character Rand and Matt together, that is where a lot of my tedium set in toward the middle of the book, like a slump. at one moment he put these characters on like this rotating wheel where they were visiting a new town or village on their journey. They were trying to find which inn to sleep in. Suspicions abound. The dark forces came to antagonize them, and etc., etc. They flee the village. They go back to a new village or town. They find another inn to sleep in. Suspicions abound. The dark forces come to antagonize them and capture them, and etc., etc. They flee the village. Yeah, it kind of kept doing that, and I was like, well, it wasn't too bad. I saw some of the development with the characters and all of that, but there was just a bit of tedium. So with that being said, one of the things that I wish that Jordan did in place of those rotating scenes that I just mentioned, I mean, there were some events that took place in between there, but I think that the other characters were just like, they were having a much more fun time on their journey. Yeah, I'll just put it that way. I wish that what he did was he started to implement some of the scenes that looked at the perspective of the villains, particularly these characters called the Forsaken. The Forsaken are like these, I guess you would say, these high agencies of the Dark One, the Dark Lord or whatever, who, of course, they're, going about doing his bidding. But what Jordan did was he brought them into the forefront at the very tail end of the book. And I wish that he would have put them, like I said, implemented them within the tedious parts of this particular story. Because when it came about at the very end, I had to sit here and go, where y'all just kind of showed up out of nowhere. Where were y'all in between all of this part? Where were you in all of this? They just kind of showed up at the end. And that kind of lost their effect to me. But I will say this, that in the second book, The Great Hunt, Jordan, I mean, he really straightened that part out. So that's one of the things that annoy me. Like, I don't like when I get to the end of a book and all of a sudden all this stuff just comes about. All of a sudden all these characters show up. And even speaking with that, the end of the book, for all that we have to go through to get to the end, I kind of felt like it was just kind of just short and sweet. It really wasn't as compelling or as effective as I would hope. I was hoping for a little bit more drawing of power, a little bit more of struggling of power, and etc., etc. But it really wasn't. It didn't have as much punch as I had hoped. It did end up leading me to this place of excitement to see what was going to happen further within the series. And so I kind of excused it as well, being the first book, that's kind of fair because there's a lot of ground to cover in this whole series as is. So that was kind of fair, but yeah, it wasn't as much of a struggle at the end. That build up of tension. It wasn't much of a struggle at the end that I had hoped for. But I mean, it was still like engaging and alluring, and just like I said, it made me enthusiastic to keep moving forward. Those were the only two things that I really had a problem with. As it concerns pace, but everything else was pretty fun to me. I absolutely love just the characters in this series. Wow, the characters. I just, they all have their different personalities. Their personalities shine. Their personalities glow. They're all different. Rand to me is almost similar to like those characters in the Final Fantasy games. He's like the little blonde character, young and innocent and a touch naive, who is used as the tool to introduce the viewer or the reader, etc., into this whole broad world. His innocence is coming about and changing as he's growing and going through his manhood, that character. But what I like about him is that he really cared about his friends, and he was really noble and loyal in that sense. So he was a good character, so I didn't have any problems with him. I like that Matt was almost like a counterpoint to the serious nature of Rand, in which Matt was the character who wanted to joke, who had the jokes, who had the mellow attitude, who also was so jokey and mellow attitude that I liked how Jordan gave him this situation that drawed out the worst traits inside of him, which made him even more compelling as a character. So as the book progressed, that lightheartedness of the character Matt began to darken and taint and change, and he struggled with that. So that was good. And as I said, Perrin is the character who I don't quite know how to make out Perrin yet. I kind of see him as a sexy wolf character right now. That's shallow, but I'm not quite sure how to make out pairing yet. But I know that with some of the circumstances surrounding him, well, better be spoiling it, right? I'm not quite sure about pairing yet. He's kind of in between to me. Now, if you look at the women characters, Egwene, I don't know. I'm not really quite sure I'm not really quite sure about Egwene either. I'm not yet. I like her, but I'm not sure about her yet. But I will say this: what I love that Jordan did with Egwene is he did not make her the damsel in distress character. He did not make her the whiny follow-up character, the character that had to be picked up. And there was two things about Egwene that shine with her character. I like the fact that she, at one point in the book, she used a slingshot to save Perrin. I'm gonna leave it at that. And one of the really good things that Jordan did with the character of Egwene, I'm looking off, y'all, but I'm thinking, is that there was this situation in which there was Perrin and her one horse, and she insisted on the two of them rotating, saddling up on the horse as they proceeded throughout their journey, so that he, of course, will be taken care of as well. Instead of her being, self-centered and selfish to insist that she stay on the horse the entire time while he walks. That is character right there. But you know what? Out of all the Edmund Fields 5, my favorite was actually Nynaeve. I know some people's like, what? Nynaeve? I can see why people don't like Nynaeve. But let me tell you why I like Nynaeve. Besides the fact that she is kind of like this older sister, and she's like the wisdom slash medic of this crew, and she grew up with them. I like Nynaeve because she had the complete and utter gall to stand up to Moraine and Lan. That's what I like. Regardless of whether she was right, regardless of whether she was wrong, regardless she didn't understand the implications, the stakes involved, her main goal was to protect her younger friends and get them back home to their village, to their home. And to the point where she stood up to Moraine, who was an Aes Sedai, and that's kind of unheard of. She stood up to Lan, who was the Aes Sedai's warder, which was kind of unheard of. And that's why Nynaeve was one of my favorite characters, because I love this. I love her spirit. And I loved her ability to, stand up for her friends and stand up for herself. But I can see why people may not like her, though. I can see, because she is kind of outspoken, but yeah, Nynaeve was probably behind Moraine and Lan. There's probably Nynaeve to me. Without a doubt, character was the #1 plus within this book. I absolutely freaking love the characters. Like, I just loved I was engaged. I was concerned about them. And one of the things that I don't want to happen is that the author would compile a number of different characters and nobody gets picked off. I think that there needs to be some reiteration and reminders of what is actually happening. I don't want that to fall to the wayside. And if there's some dark, ruthless figures out here willing to do anything to get to serve their agenda, I want them to be able to do anything. And I mean, some of these characters got to get chopped off. But of course, not the main characters. We know that. But I'm saying in the future, I don't want that to, I don't want this to be compacted group of characters and nobody's really, there's no dire consequences. That's kind of all I really want to say. I mean, I do want to say more, but I feel like I can be here all day. I enjoyed The Eye of the World. I am about 150 pages. I'm on page 500 of the second book in the series, and this one right here is a vast improvement of the pacing of the first book. Like, this one is very edge of your seat. It's thick. There's a lot of storylines and story threads, but it is just vast improvement. Not enough Nynaeve though, but I still love the stories because they're so interesting. They're fantasy stories where anything can happen, anything is going on. You just never know. But anyway, that's it. Thank you guys, and hopefully I'll be able to talk about The Grey Hunt once I finish it. And I think I need to go. Okay, bye.